teach that there are four elements which add up to fire, air, water, and earth, which constitutes the WORD of God.
Mhm.
Those four elements are conscious as themselves. This is what we teach. They're not conscious of themselves until they consolidate into what we call man. It is through the avatar of man that these four principles, these four fundamental principles, the base of the pyramid of life, essentially becomes sight, sound, smell, and taste. That's when the fire, air, water, and earth becomes conscious of themselves. So yes, you're quite right. As the higher entity, consciousness itself, consciousness simply is. You cannot qualify consciousness. You cannot say this is consciousness or that is consciousness. Consciousness simply is. We are conscious within consciousness, and we seek to elevate our perceptual model of what consciousness is. But there is no qualifying or subtracting or taking pieces of consciousness. It simply is. And when we deal with consciousness and the four elements, fire, air, water, and earth, we say water being conscious as itself. How does it become conscious of itself? Well, all of the sea life that vibrates on different levels of intellect and consciousness is the water element expressing itself through that intelligence as consciousness.
Mhm.
What is it like to be air element?
Mhm.
Well, when those that fly in the air, those things that live in the air, things that are conscious of themselves as they fly or they traverse in the air, then the air element is conscious of itself through that particular mechanism of life. So all of the elements are essentially becoming conscious, and we, the four elements, sight, fire, hearing, air, taste, water, smell, earth. So the consciousness of what it is that constitutes the compression zone we call third density needs those four elements in order to express itself in consciousness. So we are essentially dealing as conscious entities, fire, air, water, and earth. This place here, this thing called the upper room, which is where your brain is in the Bible, and the Jesus is the pineal, and the 12 signs, the 12 apostles are nothing more than the 12 cell salts dealing in the body that become the electrical fixtures that channel that electrical thing we call thought throughout the body and communicates with the cells in the mitochondria. But those four elements, as you were saying, my beloved brother Bill, that consciousness does essentially use us as feedback. We are avatars, and our particular reason to be is to experience the different grades of what that creator entity, that thing that is the unknowable. There's the known, the unknown, and the unknowable. We are participating in what we call the known. Our strive to know ourselves is us breaking the code of the unknown, and therefore, with us operating on those two levels, we are participating in the unknowable. So when the time comes for us to deal, we have to become more understanding and understanding of these four elements and how they keep us trapped in third density.
Mhm.
How do we use them to operate our thought process, which keeps us trapped in the past? Because thought is past. There's no future thought. There's only the past.
Mm.
So my teacher taught me, you have to get out of the past and come into the isness of being, the now time. And that now time is the operating of these four principles in thought, which is understanding time. Time and thought work together.
Mhm.
So when we work that out and we transcend time, we transcend the need to think, the need to feed on thought. It's like if you don't have anything to think about, people go crazy. Have you ever been in a room in one of those sensory deprivation tanks?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's a horrific experience. If you
I heard about
do that because it takes away all your abilities
Yeah.
to feed on something. And then your brain starts going back into past. It starts
Damn.
looking for chemistries to say, well, am I
Yeah.
alive? Where is the input? Input. We're so accustomed to the cacophony of input that we don't deal with the silence. And that's what my lecture is going to be about. We are living in pulse intervals of reality. What we have forgotten is how to look at the interval as the escape route.
Mhm.
The pulse is the
Ooh.
illusion. We have to learn how to channel our understanding of how to localize our thought process, bring it heel, like we do a horse or an animal that we're breaking, and understand that that interval, that pulse, that our heartbeat is showing us, that heartbeat is what's keeping us here in third density. That's that 6-8. It's not a 4-4, it's a 6-8.
Mm.
So when you're dealing with that, and you have to understand how that comes about, once you understand the pulse intervals of reality, and you understand the stillness in the pulse, in the intervals of the pulse, then you understand the escape route. That's the Stargate.
Man, oh my God, this show, oh my God, yo, family, this is amazing. This is amazing. It's Monday, it's Moon Day. It's Monday,
Hey,
Moon Day.
I wanted to touch on what Brother Billy was
Yes.
saying. Like,
Yeah.
he gave the description of the radio, right?
Mhm.
And everybody's tuned in to a different station. Okay, that means everybody got something different to say. Because one station country music, one station is rap music,
Mhm.
one station is all news,
Mhm.
one is talk history, right? But we got all of these different stations
I love it.
coming out from the central broadcast location,
Indeed.
right? So that means that whatever station you tune to, you're the only person tuned to the station you tune to, unless you got somebody that vibrate on the exact same frequency as you.
Yeah.
Like everybody
Right.
here.
Yeah, exactly, Doc. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So now, when you look at what Dr. Valentine is saying about the senses,
Mhm.
the body is just a rover, like the Mars rover.
Like the Mars rover.
and we project in here, just like they put on those spacesuits to go in outer space.
Exactly.
We put this physical flesh suit on in order to navigate the three-dimensional world around us.
Indeed.
When we get tired of it and it wear out, we take it off and walk around without it. Until a suitable vessel come along that match up to the frequency and vibration of the very first one that came of you, and then you can get back in on that frequency. Right? Yep. That means that your radio station comes around periodically for you to come in and go out. Just like when you go through the tunnel, your radio cut out, but when you come out the other side and come back on, that's your life-death cycle.
Oh, man. Shit.
Yep.
Right? I want to say something too, brother. As far as talking about gods, right? I want to say something about gods. I do believe that there are false gods and true gods. And you know, when you deal with a lot of extraterrestrials, a lot of them being that they use technology to control weather and control different things like that, I deem them, a lot of them, false gods. But if you look at the term God, and the term God goes is a Germanic term, and it goes into deity, and deity comes from the root word deus, which means to shine, right? To shine. So when I understood that, my mind automatically went into, oh, okay, so I must become, in order to become like God, I must develop a new body, a shiny body. And that's when I became obsessed with something called light body. And I believe that everybody who's watching this, and everybody who you know, everyone on this panel everyone's watching has the ability to transform themselves into a higher consciousness of light. And as I did different practices, I've learned over time that humans, and it's been documented over 300, I believe over 300 cases of Tibetan monks turning themselves into bodies of light and turn themselves into gods, because God is really one who is immortal, and he has a certain control over a certain aspect of nature or reality. You know what I mean? And when I learned about the immortal light body, it just blew me away. So one of the first experiences I had many years ago was when I was a janitor, you know, many years ago on a roof, and I started working on my light body many years ago. And this is one of the experiences I had of actually a light being actually appearing to me. And I could take anybody to this roof. You can see the sun right there, you know, and you can see a person who appeared in the picture. In my picture, you can see like he has a head, he has legs. And when I went home and looked at the picture again, I couldn't believe it, because when I snapped the picture, I actually saw somebody like a 12-foot tall person standing there. Like, but as my eyes cleared up from the flash, I didn't see anything. So I have seen many evidences of us being gods and us tapping into our Makaba, you know, our higher vessels, and us transform them vessels to transform. Because as I study spirituality, that's one of my goals, is to never come back, hop into my Makaba and never come back and transform into light and transform into a higher consciousness. And that's something I teach on my Patreon. And we talk about on my Patreon. I have shown evidence of communicating with the sun and communicating with the clouds. And it's something that we all can do if we're gods, you know what I mean? And that's kind of what, in my mind, what gods are. You have control over a certain aspect of reality, and you're immortal. And I believe that a God is one that shines, a shiny one. I also wanted to say this real quick. To go into what we were talking about a little bit earlier, there's a book that just came out this month called The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls. Very, very interesting book. It was written in Spanish, but it just came out in English. The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Walls. The World's Beyond Article.
They publish it as a fiction, but that's supposed to be his true account.
Yes. And I'm halfway through it. I just started reading it. It's very fascinating. And they go in and talk about how the Anunnaki run all this. You know what I'm saying? How the Anunnaki pretty much running everything. And as far as I've gotten, and it's very interesting. They have the islands of Osiris, and you know, and that's what got me thinking deeper about the dome or the hologram we live in, and how there could be multiple ones on different levels, like Dr. Phil was talking about, outside of this hologram. That just blew my mind. And I am an astral projector as a fourth dimensional consciousness. I can leave my body in my dreams and travel and stuff like that. And I have been to the other side in my experiences. And the first thing I remember when I went over there was that it was extremely hot. Like it felt like it was 200 degrees over there. And I remember seeing blue beings and green beings. I remember seeing high level technology, what we would consider flying cars and stuff like that. I didn't see no Anunnaki, but I'm pretty sure they over there, because I don't know the islands by heart what it is. But
we had all that stuff here.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And when I learned it, it really pissed me off, because I'm like, man, I can't believe that all this stuff is being hidden from us on this level. You know what I mean? And it just broke my heart. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to share that with the family.
Thank you.
You guys might want to pick this up. It just came out this month. I'm halfway through it. Pretty interesting. But I want to say all that, family.
Thank you so much, brother. You know what I want to talk with y'all about real quick. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. We have over 7,400 people in the buildings right now. There's over 7,400 live people in the building right now. And that's big, because there's channels that spend millions of dollars to get 7,000 people in the building on a live stream. CNN, Fox News, they will spend millions of dollars to have 7,000 people live right now. And we're talking about spiritual information, and we have over 7,000 people live right now. So thank you to everybody who's tuned in, who's interested. And this is just further evidence of the age, the golden age that we are entering. I'm truly, truly appreciative to be a part of this process. One thing I want to talk about, this is one of the most important aspects of our transformation and us being who we are, whether we're Black extraterrestrials, whoever we are. And Delbert Blair talked about this, and Delbert Blair inspired this interview. He talked about the concept of relative truth. Delbert Blair talked about how there's relative truth and there's absolute truth. And what I want to say is that a lot of us have experiences that a lot of us don't have experiences with, and it's individual. And when one person doesn't experience what another person experienced, we say that nigga lying, that nigga bullshitting, he's full of shit, he's this or that. And we're like, no, I'm not lying, I'm not bullshitting, or I'm not this. Or we just see things from different perspectives a lot of times in this realm, or this reality, and we can't seem to get on the same page. And this is why I commended all you brothers for getting on here with me today, because ego is a big thing. And ego knows, we just talked about the senses. Ego, the main thing about ego is the senses: sight, smell, touch, taste. If I don't see it, I don't smell it, I don't hear it, shit ain't real. But what if another brother smelled it? Oh, the shit ain't real. He smelled it, I didn't smell it, so it ain't real. So talk to me about, because it's easy to say, well, relative truth is real. But what about relative truth when it comes to history? Because we're all analyzing history for our people. But what about when it comes to relative truth and analyzing history? Now, does that same concept of relative truth apply when it comes to history? Or when it comes to history, does it have to be absolute truth? Because all of you have a slightly different perspectives on history. So talk to me about the concept of relative truth and how it's going to advance our people.
Okay,
there's so many different relative truths.
Look, we just talked about the radio stations and different content that come across radio stations. I can't see what Dr. Valentine see from how he see it. I don't think like him. I didn't have the same upbringing. The same with Brother Carson. I can't see. I can only go by the way he described his experiences. That gives me a glimpse through empathy to see what he's seeing, right? So it's like a big puzzle, this game of life, and we all got a piece of it, right? And we all got to speak our truth so that we can put the truth together. When you talk about history, history is always written from somebody's perspective, which is somebody's angle. So if you don't know what the angle of them is, then you will never be able to communicate with the information angel over the information. It's all about perception and the distillation of perception, right? Like, I can bring up certain stuff about the Anunnaki, and Brother Carson can go all the way into it. Dr. Valentine can go all the way into a lot of the metaphysics that I might bring up, but I might not go into as much detail because that might not be my main field of study. But I still have a perspective, just like they all have a perspective. When we come together on a harmony note, this is what we're doing now. There ain't no big eyes, no little U's. We all bring in what we have to the table. Cut this piece of pie up. You get a piece of chicken, pass me the biscuits. I'm going to get some of the mashed potatoes over there, and we're going to put this meal together, and we're going to all eat in the end. That's the ultimate goal of us being here, learning how to work with each other by individually first working through our own cycles of karma, right? So this is the perspectives are necessary in order to have more than one set of eyes on the same problem. Because everybody's not going to see the same thing, just like everybody can't have the same job.
No?
Excellent.
If I may, to me, relative truth is the accepted truth. Relative truth is the matter-of-fact reality that's created by a consensus reality. The reality, or what we call relative truth, essentially comes from indoctrination, acculturation. So we say that we call this thing that flies across the air a bird. That's a relative truth. Why? Because the language fixates that particular truth. I look for reality. Once the reality cycles upon itself over a dozen times and continues to do the same thing each time, then that would be a truth. As far as reality is concerned, there is this indoctrinational reality that we have, where we have, you say that there's relative truth versus absolute truth. Absolute truth is fixed into the unknowable, the unattainable, because we are here in a place dealing with dichotomies. So we'll never get the absolute truth in the particular housing that we're dealing with, which is why the Creator created itself. It created us to be feedback mechanisms for the examination of absolute truth by distilling it into what we call creation, the unbalancing itself, because it couldn't create outside itself. We have this misnomer that creation is something that was done outside of God, and you put it outside. No, creation was a subtraction. It was a distillation. It's a condensation within. It's not something, there's no outside to the Creator. So what we're doing is relative, we're talking about relative truth versus absolute truth. Absolute truth right now in this particular framework is unattainable. So what we do is we do the best with the experiential models that we are operating in this school. We then create certain realities based upon what the body feels comfortable with, what the mind feels at peace with. And then we call certain things that either harm us or benefit us, and we operate along those lines. We call that, that's the truth. So some people have experiences that align with other people. So you say, yeah, brother, speaking the truth. Well, other people's, as my brother said, no, I may have a completely different reality. Then we're not talking about truth then. We're talking about an ongoing procession of experiences. that we can see if we could link or somehow consolidate or somehow meet at the same line of perception and say, yes, I had the same experience, therefore to both of us that's a truth. But to say whether we have relative truth versus absolute truth, relative truth is the only absolute truth that we have right now as we're operating here. So we can't say we know what absolute truth is. We can only know what absolute truth is as it expresses itself through the relativity of our own inability to know what absolute truth is.
Indeed. Anybody want to add on to that?
Yeah, you know, it's pretty interesting because it's such a deep topic. It's a deep subject because, you know, like I try to say, we all have a piece to the puzzle. And by that method, we then can create a masterpiece. And we're just trying to paint this picture. You know, I remember when I was a kid, you know, video games and all that stuff didn't exist yet. So we would get these puzzles from Kmart, and these puzzles would be like these oil paintings. And we'd take them and break them into pieces and, you know, mix them all up. And then the challenge was to put, you know, this 1,000 piece puzzle together. And we spent like the next 3 weeks, myself and my brothers and sister, trying to put this puzzle back together so we can see this beautiful painting. And then we would take that creative puzzle and we would try to put some wax across the top of it so it would stay together and make it into like something you can possibly hang on the wall or whatever. And but, you know, through that method, I learned a lesson. I learned that we all have a piece that I thought wouldn't fit. My brother would find that piece or my sister would find that piece. And she'd go, oh, no, it goes right here. And like, oh, and then the painting becomes more and more clear. And as these different pieces come together, all of a sudden, eventually you have a.
So it's 8:33 a.m. and UAW workers are striking. And so I went up there this morning. I did some bathroom shuttles and talked to a couple of people up there. But this is not for the just the UAW. This is about us controlling law enforcement, you know, using the common interest between the worker and law enforcement, and using our laws, the laws that they make us follow, and the rules that they go by. So if you call them out on their stuff, then they have to respond according to the Constitution in this particular manner. Now, when you don't know what to tell them, then they're going to do what whoever called them told them to do. So we need to get to a place where we can try to control the police before the police go rogue on us. We have to take control of them. I'm trying everything I can to keep these idiots from getting slaughtered in the streets. And they don't see it coming. And so I'm gonna do a couple more invites right quick. Okay, I'm done doing invites. I'm not doing no more invites because it's gonna be a short video. So there's a way for the worker to make the law enforcement protect the picket line. And that is your inalienable right to protest and freedom of assembly. When you understand that your inalienable rights, according to the Declaration of Independence, is a God-given right that no man has a right to undermine, then you go to your Constitution, your Bill of Rights enumerates the freedom of assembly, and under that, the right to protest has been ruled on by the Supreme Court of the United States as an absolute right of protest that can't be interfered with. And this was done during the civil rights marches. So now, all the worker leadership has to do is put law enforcement on notice by, I'm gonna post this, I'm gonna put the information on this video. So if y'all know anybody that's in the UAW that has a position in the union as a leadership position, they need that information in order to make the law enforcement work on the side of the worker and to push against the corporations. Now y'all got to remember, all law enforcement are unionized labor, so they need an excuse to support the labor workforce. Why do they need an excuse? Because they are supposed to enforce the law. They can't just come up there indiscriminately without somebody telling them what their duties are. Because if you can't identify their duties, then you don't even know why they're there. They can pretty much run rogue. But they're there for public safety and public safety alone and the freedom of assembly. Anybody crossing the picket line is in direct violation of public safety, therefore should be arrested instead of arresting the picketers. See, they got it backwards because the complainant is complaining and the police have to act, but then the people that's they're complaining against is not doing what they call a counter assertion of rights. You have to assert your rights to law enforcement and then they'll protect them. Then they'll protect them. Now, this is the thing. If you don't know what you're doing, you sit your ass down. But it's real simple in this context. It's just a